Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host, Dr. Steve Jeffs, and myself, Erwin de Grave. And today we have the pleasure to talk to Rusty Tugman. Hello, Rusty. How are you doing?
I'm great. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, pleasure for having you here. And Steve, of course, like I always say, welcome as well.
Thank you.
I'm always doing introductions, so why not? So, Rusty, we could try to introduce yourself, but I'm 100% sure you know yourself much better than we do. We just met, actually, so you should know yourself much better. So, who is Rusty? What does he do? How did he get in coaching?
Thanks for asking. Appreciate that. So after 30 years in full-time ministry, I became the leadership trainer and coach for the Oklahoma Department of Human Services, which is Oklahoma's largest state agency with a little over 6,000 employees. And in that role, I train and coach our supervisors, managers, and executives on all things leadership. But I also created the agency's internal coaching program, which is actually the first of its kind in the history of Oklahoma state government. And so the way that has grown has just been really amazing. I also own my own coaching and consulting company, and so that allows me to work with just a variety of leaders from a variety of industries. And so the clients I've had run the gamut from leaders in nonprofits to leaders of multi-billion-dollar multinational companies. And so I really enjoy that. And so I actually work as both an internal coach and an external coach. So that's kind of an interesting thing there. The way that I got into coaching was kind of by accident, as many of your previous guests have said as well. So I was originally hired at OKDHS as a leadership trainer. And so after doing a training with a particular team, I mentioned to my boss that I wish there was more we could do to support our employees. And he said, well, have you ever thought about coaching? I think your background, I think you'd be pretty good at it. And I said, well, I hadn't thought of that, but certainly willing to give it a go and see what it's like. And so I just did a deep dive into coaching and just learned all I could about coaching, went through several certification processes. And then I started coaching one employee at this large agency. And that employee, she got so much value out of coaching that she told several of her colleagues about it. And so I started coaching them, and then they told several more of their colleagues. And so it just kind of kept going like that. And it grew like that to the point where now we have a formal internal coaching program where we offer executive coaching, leadership coaching, conflict coaching, group coaching, team coaching. And then in 2026, we're launching a new training called Coaching Skills for Leaders that's designed to equip our supervisors and managers with coaching skills and a coaching mindset that they can use in everyday leadership. So we have a pretty robust program, but it all started with just me coaching one employee. So that's a little bit of my coaching journey.
Thank you very much there, Rusty. So lots of questions, lots of directions we could go in, but I think it's a big one there. What a lot of us do when we learn coaching is client comes in, what's your topic? We get to accountability, and often coach training is framed where the client themselves is paying for the service. Sometimes we stretch to executive type coaching where the workplace is paying for the service, but this internal coaching is a whole different thing. So from your perspective, with I guess a foot in both camps, what's the difference between internal coaching and external coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is interesting to have, like you said, to have a foot in both camps, just to kind of have both experiences. I think with internal coaching, some of the challenges with internal coaching is, I mean, there are certainly conflicts of interest and power dynamics that you have to be able to navigate skillfully. Um, when you're an internal coach, you're coaching employees of an organization, but you yourself are an employee of that organization. And so many times I have coached people who have the ability to fire me, if they want. And, and so that's kind of interesting because as a coach, you have to be the most courageous person in the room and create that cadence of accountability. And so, so that can be a kind of an interesting thing when you're coaching people who are kind of several rungs above you, on the org chart. So there's certainly those kinds of challenges that you have to be able to navigate, but to me, the benefits of it outweigh all of those kind of challenges because one of the things I think you get to experience as an internal coach is because you're one of them, and you're with these people every day, you truly get to see their growth and development in real time. And that is really rewarding as a coach. Um, as an internal coach, not only are you coaching individual employees, but in many ways, you're the coach of the entire system. And so you kind of have to keep an eye on both of those things. But that's one of the benefits of being an internal coach as well is you can really see and feel shifts in the culture that are coming about as a result of the coaching that's being done and equipping people to take on more of a coaching mindset. And so I think those are things that you don't necessarily get to see in the same way when you're an external coach. I mean, you do get to see those things, you get to experience some of that, but like I said, you don't really get the real time sense of that, or actually get to see them practicing, putting into practice the things that you just talked about, in a coaching session. And so, like I said, that's really rewarding.
It is from a coaching purity perspective, and certainly from a positivistic view, where in many ways a lot of coaching has emerged from. There's by definition a separation, certainly from a therapeutic perspective. A therapist can't be friends with the clients. We've got to create separation and formalities and gaps and all of these things to be objective and to manage conflicts of interest. And yet what you said is, as an internal coach, I'm one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like you use different words, but that's like, I'm one of us. I'm part of this system within which I'm coaching. I think there's two questions emerging for me. One is, how do you manage the conflicts of interest that can emerge, but also the boundaries between colleague and coach and employer and employee? And I guess the second part of this is, and how does that influence your design with
Mm-hmm.
people you're working with?
Yeah. And I think when you're an internal coach, I mean, you identify several key things that you have to be aware of, and you constantly have to be aware of those things, those conflicts of interest, those boundaries, um, but also kind of like you said, kind of maintaining, okay, here's my role in this person's life. Um, and so that's where my background in ministry actually really has helped me a lot with that. So, before I started coaching, I mean, I'm pretty practiced at being able to maintain those kind of relationships, be able to maintain those types of boundaries, um, to kind of maintain that coexistence of, yeah, I'm here for you, but at the same time, I have a certain role in your life, and really knowing that role. Um, those are all things that an internal coach has to pay attention to. One of the things when I say, like you pointed out, I said, I'm kind of one of us. Um, I really take pride in that because I think it actually helps me as a coach. So where I work, so it's the Department of Human Services, so it's social work. And so it's a government agency. And so there is a very particular culture within that organization. And being able to know that culture, to know what works, what doesn't work, to know kind of the guardrails. As a government agency, there are certain guardrails that are in place, and you have to abide by. So knowing those things, but also knowing the stresses, knowing the pressures. Um, in this type of organization, success is defined very differently, because it's a government agency, but it works almost like a nonprofit, because we're not competing with any other companies for market share, or anything like that. I mean, our budget is set by the state legislature, so we don't even really have control over a lot of those types of levers. So success is viewed very differently. The outcomes that we're going for are very different than in a for-profit company. And so I think being in it and having an intimate knowledge of all of those things has really helped me to be able to relate to people, but also to really serve them in a way that they really connect with. Because I think it's the type of culture that an external coach coming in, there's just a lot there that I don't know if they would fully grasp.
Mm.
But being in it has really helped me, I think, to be able to connect in a really deep way.
So a question that I've been pondering already since you were talking is, how do you position yourself as a coach, but on a power level? Certainly, if you have those people above you that
Hmm.
could kick you out,
Yeah.
how do you position yourself? Because as an external coach, you're external,
Hmm.
and they define that differently. You're not in that structure, but you coming, you have an employee, you're in there. So how do you position that so that you can challenge
Hmm.
your bosses in the coaching so that there is no
Yeah.
repercussion or anything?
Yeah. Great question. So, and I think where you're positioned in the organization is really important.
Mm.
And so kind of where I'm housed, so to speak, within our organization is I'm part of human resources. But within human resources, we have a learning and employee development team, and so that's where I'm housed, so to speak. And uh, and that is something that I have really wanted to maintain. One is I have an incredible boss, who is very supportive and is a champion of the coaching that we're doing. Um, but also the way that our team is kind of viewed within the agency is we're kind of like Switzerland, meaning that when people come to us or when I'm coaching somebody, okay, I don't have any power, in the sense of I can't fire this person, I don't have any power over this person or anything like that. So that's not how they relate to me. So when they relate to me, I mean, they truly are just seeing somebody who is for them and
Mm.
somebody who's in their corner and and somebody who's safe to talk to. So I'm not in I don't have a lot of the power dynamics that kind of can cloud
Mm.
that relationship. And so I think where you're housed in the organization is really important. And when we started the coaching program, I was very adamant um, that we position coaching as a positive thing that is designed to help people be their best. So I have boundaries around coaching is not for discipline. So we have other groups and other teams that they deal with the disciplinary issues and if somebody has to go on a PMP, some type of performance improvement plan, there's other people that deal with that. I wanted coaching to be viewed as not that you're being sent to the principal's office, but that, hey, this is a great opportunity to just help you to grow and to kind of figure some things out. And so I think it's really important where you're housed, but also how you frame coaching, that this is a good thing. This is to help you. This is to support you as you go about your work and to help you to perform at your best. Coaching is not for, okay, you really messed up, so now we got to fix you. So I really wanted to
Mm.
avoid that. And so creating those boundaries and those structures was really important whenever I started this program and created it. Um, and if I can just say just a couple of more things about kind of creating an internal coaching program, because I think it gets to this question. So when you're creating a program, and I think like to your question, it's such a great question, and that's why from the very beginning you have to be aware of those dynamics, of those potential conflicts of interest, potential power dynamics. And so the way that you structure it and frame it from the very beginning is really important. And so when I was creating this program, I was really focused on four things. And so one of those was for an internal coaching program to succeed in particularly in my context, but I would say within any organization or company. I mean, you've got to be really clear on the purpose that this internal coaching program serves within the organization. And you've got to be able to communicate that purpose well. And so that involves answering questions like, what problem does coaching solve for this organization? What value does coaching bring to this company? How does coaching help this company or organization accomplish its goals? And then what does coaching make possible for this company or for the leaders of this company? So you've got to be really clear on the purpose of an internal coaching program to an organization. But then you also have to create standards and structures that allow you to maintain a consistent quality of coaching while also allowing you to scale coaching within the organization. And then you've got to find a way to measure it. Particularly when you're in a for-profit company, return on investment is huge. And so you've got to be able to measure the impact that coaching has, and again, be able to communicate that. And then the other thing was you got to deliver. And I know that kind of goes without without saying, but particularly when you're in doing this in a business context, if you're not delivering, I mean, they'll divert those resources to somewhere else in the company or organization where they are delivering. And so, that kind of goes back to those standards and structures is you want to make sure that you're creating standards and structures that help you to deliver. So those are things that I really paid a lot of attention to in building our program to be able to do it in a way that kind of helps us to navigate the issues that you brought up. Sorry, it's kind of a long answer, but
No,
hope.
no, no, that's great. So my next question goes around. So you just created that program, like an internal program that everybody could
Hmm.
create in an organization. And
Hmm.
it starts, as far as I would say, as a test project.
Right.
When is it, when it gets there, that it becomes really where they say, the leaders say, this is, we're going to take a part of the budget and we're going to put it there every year? Because what has been that tipping point and what is the importance of that?
Yeah, yeah, love that question. And so for me, the way we started, so like I said, kind of in the intro, is it started with just one employee, you know, and and then it just like we didn't do any marketing, anything internally. It was truly just word of mouth. And the biggest reason for that is because uh, I came in as a trainer. And so I do a lot of training. So the team that I'm on, we have some fantastic leadership development programs that are pretty extensive, and we have them for different levels of your career journey. So I do a lot of training, and so I don't have the luxury of just coaching full time. And so I always had to balance that out. And so the tipping point came kind of in two ways. One is where the demand for coaching became so much that I mean I had a huge waiting list. of people wanting to be coached, but I had limited bandwidth because I'm also doing a lot of training, and so I have to fulfill my responsibilities there. So that was one tipping point, was when the demand grew to the point where I couldn't sustain it. But the other is where my bosses, they started seeing the value. Um, and I mean, that's one of the reasons why I had a waiting list, was people were just getting value. And as you guys know, I mean, that really had nothing to do with me. Coaching, just that the coaching process is so powerful. And that's what people were experiencing, is they were experiencing the benefits of truly being coached. And so, but that it became really obvious that, hey, we're getting a lot of value out of this, that this is actually becoming one of the best things we're doing to provide growth, development. And I'll say one other thing here in just a minute, but those were kind of the two tipping points, were when the demand grew to the point that we could no longer sustain it the way that it was, but also the reason for that demand was people were getting so much value of it, and they were talking to other people about it. So that created kind of that inflection point to where we were able to hire a person to join me, and he is primarily coaching, is what he does. He does a little bit of training, but he primarily does coaching. And so because of that, then we were able to then be able to serve more people, and that's what really was the catalyst for us being able to grow the number of services that we offered. Um, but I'll say one other thing about, so one of the benefits that became kind of this tipping point, and this was something that I did not anticipate at all. Um, and I think a lot of it had to do with the context that I'm in. So again, I'm in the Department of Human Services, and so basically we deal with the most vulnerable citizens within our state, and it's really hard work, and it's a type of work that just takes a toll on every part of your being. And what I did not anticipate when I started doing the coaching is the impact that it would have on employee well-being. But we have feedback mechanisms, because like I said, you got to find a way to measure it. By far, the most common piece of feedback that we got had to do with employee well-being. And that was never my goal. I wasn't even thinking like that. I was thinking performance and, help you be a better leader and create greater engagement with your employees. I was not even thinking like that. And it was amazing. And it all had to do with coaching gave people a safe place to talk and to process.
Mm.
And and because of that, that was a big part of the value that people started seeing. And I think that's what really got a lot of my boss's attention was, yeah, we were able to improve performance, and there was a lot of growth, and there were some great stories that came out of that. But what they were hearing more than anything else was, man, support, well-being, um, just gives me a place to just think through things with somebody. And so that was really cool because, like I said, that wasn't even on my radar.
I love it. It's like, yeah, performance stuff. Yeah, we got all of that. But actually, there's this other side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the magic of doing the work that we do, is that we get to inspire, partner, and co-create results in all dimensions. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a holistic impact when we get to work with the people. So I'm loving where that's looking. That was going to be one of my questions. I'm curious about what you said around structure and standards,
Hmm.
because inside an organization with multiple coaches, it's a unique environment. Lots of us as coaches, we're out there.
Steve, we lost sound.
Oh, am I back?
Yes, you're back.
There you
Oh,
go. It looked like a really good point because your hands were
Yeah, you
moving
were
and
just
everything. So yeah.
The universe is censoring me. So as external coaches, we go off. We can be individuals,
Mhm.
and inside an organization where there's a team of coaches, I'm guessing we want to inspire individuality, but also have alignment of the service and consistency,
Yes.
so that, well, one, people don't feel left out. How come he got that? How come they got that? But also to make the impact, like to Erwin's point, it moved from a program to a part of the business. To do that, we have to have a standard, predictable value proposition that we're offering.
Yeah.
How have you balanced individuality and standards?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Yeah. So yeah, the standards to me, that was a really important thing. And so what's funny is, so when I was doing this all by myself, I actually created, I wrote a handbook, because I envisioned, okay, someday that this could scale and we could bring on another coach and hopefully more, and all of that. And so I began to think about that and, okay, what would that look like? And so I thought, okay, before we even bring on somebody else, I want to create those standards. And so I actually wrote a handbook that covers all kinds of different issues, but it was for this purpose. It was for the purpose of saying, yes, we are different coaches. So like I said, I mentioned there's one other guy that works with me. He's a full-time coach. And then we have another member of our team that she kind of works with us on a kind of a part-time basis. So she does some administrative work for us, but then also coaches frontline employees. And so for the three of us, we're very different, but we all have the same kind of mindset, the same goal in mind, but also we use a lot of the same structures and practices. And so what I used was, so one of my certifications, so I'm a professional certified coach through ICF, International Coaching Federation, and so I use their competencies and ethics as 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 part of the standards that we aspire to. Um, so when we think of quality coaching, what we're thinking of is through those ICF competencies. Are we staying true to this? And are we following these ethical guidelines that the ICF sets out? So the ICF is a great resource, for those kinds of standards. And so that's really what we abide by. And so within that, as you know, I mean, I kind of compare it to, I'm a fan of jazz music. I don't know if you guys are jazz fans, but with jazz, I mean, there's a lot of improvisation, a lot of individuality within jazz, but it's all grounded in the basics of music and in the foundations of music. And there's such a strong foundation that that's what allows them to then riff and all of that. And so I kind of view coaching in that way, that these standards, particularly those ICF standards, kind of create that grounding and that foundation where, you know, we're making sure that we're honoring those. But then from that, it kind of gives us that platform to then express our own individuality as coaches and things like that.
Yes, I love it. Erwin, you got something.
Yes, I was going to. So we're talking about the standards. I don't know if the organization has been using or working with external coaches because there was a certain necessity and going on. So first of all, how do employees see that as external
Mhm.
coaches versus the internal coaches? And how do you fit them in the whole standards and
Mhm.
the program that you created to make sure you deliver the same?
Yeah. So in our organization, they've used external coaches for a number of years, but that was only for the top level executives. So below that level, they didn't have any access to any kind of coaching. And so that was one of the needs that I saw, is that man, we need everybody to have access to this. And so that's what we're able to provide. I have started to coach now several of our executives on that level, and it's been interesting because that is an issue. Um, to be honest, the external coaches that have been used in the past have not all been certified. They have not all had. They certainly don't have the same standards that we have. Um, and so that is something that I'm hoping that we can kind of have more of a voice into and more of a say in that, because I do think that's important. I think external coaches can be very valuable um, in an organization like ours. But to me, what I'm working towards is working towards where there can be greater consistency of the type of coaching that's being offered. And so that's still a work in progress right now.
So
It is
Steve,
traumatic. That this is an evolution, both the awareness for non-coaches around things like the ICF standards, the PCC markers, and not just the work of the ICF, but all of the other coaching bodies that are holding the standards of our
Yeah.
profession. But it seems like coaches know about it, but no one else does. And so buyers or purchasers of coaching don't know what questions to
Right.
ask. And so what you're doing is really great in terms of evolving that interaction and creating that alignment. I think one of the things that I've seen is exactly that. I do a lot of work with very senior or organization or leaders in organizations, and I have the advantage of being outside of the water in which they swim. The advantages that you spoke about before,
Mhm.
I don't have. I also don't have the disadvantages of being within the system and seeing the same pressures. And so there's value at time and place for external perspectives and different things. And I think that's part of your point as well. How do we create alignment of what we're doing, and then how do we fit the service that's going to meet the outcome? One question that really you were going to add something.
Well, I was just going to add to that. Yes, I agree with you, and I love the way that you explain that. And that's what I'm hoping that we can get to, is to where, I'm not trying to do a takeover, to where we don't use external coach. Because like I said, I mean, I've worked as an external coach. There's a lot of value to having that outside perspective. So what I'm hoping to build is create is, like you said, is kind of that alignment, but also more of that sense of partnership, to where I'm able to say, you know what, I think an external coach could speak better to this
Mhm.
than I can. And there's a partnership there. That's what I would love to see. And like I said, it's still a work in progress.
It definitely is. So one of the themes that you're speaking to, so as we do sort of come to wrap this up, is it's the internalization of not just coaches, but coaching. And we touched on this before. One of the things you're introducing is how do we help leaders become more coach-like? This is definitely an opportunity to increase coach-like conversations across an organization. But what are you learning about leadership from your experiences in and around internal coaching?
Yeah, I think, and and by the way, I mean our goal, the goal of our internal coaching program is we are trying to create a coaching culture within our agency. I mean, there's, as you all well know, I mean, there's a lot of research that says that a coaching culture actually can bring out the best in people. It helps with retention, with employee engagement, with performance, all of those types of things. And so we're really trying to create a coaching culture. That's one of the reasons why we developed this training. Is we want coaching to spread, because we just feel like coaching and that mindset just makes us better. It also just helps people, because we have over 6,000 employees. There's a lot of diversity there. I think coaching is well suited to really being able to see the value that each person brings, and that there's value in diversity, and really bringing out the best of all of that diversity, so that we can serve our people even better. So, but what I'm learning about leadership, one, through coaching, it's not necessarily a new lesson, but it is a reminder, is that one of the things that I've learned through coaching is that leaders need support. And particularly the higher up you are in an organization, I believe the even more support you need, because what I've experienced with coaching is that when you get to a certain level of leadership in, at a certain point on the org chart, you don't have a lot of people that you can talk to, because everybody takes everything you say as a directive, and you're going, no, 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 I'm just throwing out an idea. I'm just kicking the tires on something. And so you don't really have, and because your word carries so much weight, you don't have a place to just kind of vent or process. And so that's one of the things that I have seen that coaching really provides for those kinds of leaders. So there's one guy that I've been coaching for a long time now within our organization who is a fantastic leader. I mean, he's just really, really good. And so what he uses coaching for is processing, is because he just doesn't have that. And so it just gives him a way to just think through things, process things together, because that's one of the roles of a coach, is being a thought partner. And it helps him to get all of his thoughts together so that then he can go and communicate that, to his team. And so I think that's an awesome use of coaching. And so I guess that's the thing that's really stood out to me is people need that place to just talk and process. And as you all know, it's through their own processing. And obviously we're guiding that through our presence and questions and listening and all those things. But it's as they're processing, that's when those light bulbs go off, is they hear themselves say it. Oh, and then now there's greater ownership. Now there's greater buy-in. And so I guess that's the thing that I've learned about leadership, is that I think sometimes, especially here in America, we have this mentality of the leader is the Lone Ranger, the one who can do it all and who can handle it all. No, leaders are human beings, and even the best leaders need support, and they struggle with self-doubt, and they need somebody who can mirror that to them, or somebody who can kind of challenge them. And so that's what I've learned about leadership, is that leaders need the support that coaching can bring.
It's a really good point. We talk about, coach-like leadership. We talk about leaders being able to ask questions and being willing to listen to the answers, about collaborating, co-creating, sort of enhancing our ability as leaders to facilitate with our teams rather than just direct. But this place of actually, who do I get to lean upon? Where do I get to have space to hear myself think?
Right.
I've seen exactly the same thing. I've seen executives that say, look, outside of our coaching sessions, I don't get a chance to think about what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm so busy doing all of those things. And add to that what you said about power balances and dynamics and politics. And, you get towards the top of any team or organization, suddenly there's a lot of under the surface competition and positioning and misunderstanding and multiple agendas. And often the collaboration and the sense of true peers that we used to have when we were inside teams is gone. In fact, I saw some research the other day that less than a third of executives see themselves actually as a part of the executive team. They're part of the team, they know that they sit around the table, but are we a team? Is this my primary team? No, I just come together with them infrequently, and this is my team. Yeah. Looking downwards. And I think there's a lot to be learned, a lot to be discovered on this journey. I look forward to seeing what emerges as we go forwards. Rusty, I know I've got a lot of questions. I can see behind Erwin's eyes he's got a whole lot of questions. We're going to have to come back to a different point on this later. For those that also have questions, like the rest of us, how can people connect with you?
Yeah. Well, again, just thank you so much for having me. I told you at the beginning, I'm a huge fan of this podcast, so it's been an honor to be a guest. So people can connect me through LinkedIn. I'm pretty present there. They can also go to my website, which is my own coaching company, rustytugman.com.
All right, Rusty, thank you very much for it. Was really interesting. It was really exciting to look more about that internal coaching because it's something that is not too much talked about, certainly in coaching. So thank you for being so open and telling us how you've been doing it and so on. So thank you very much. And everybody else listening in, thank you very much. And until the next episode, take care. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.